So my job is to make YouTube videos about sustainability, environmentalism, community activism, all those sort of things. That's what I do for a living. And so naturally, a lot of times when I meet people out in my community, or when my friends or my neighbors find out that that's what I do for a living, they often have questions about how it works and where I get my ideas from and those sort of things. And I often tell people that I think about videos like this in terms of titles, because YouTube, like the first thing you see, what you judge a lot of the times, determining if you want to click and watch a video is the title. And sometimes that's to my detriment, because sometimes I just want to talk about these things that are happening in the world that all seem to be kind of fitting under an umbrella, but not in particular. And that's kind of where I get caught up a lot of times. There are things going on in the world that I want to talk about, that I want to comment on, that I want to bring to your attention and maybe provide a new perspective. But sometimes it's hard to kind of fit them all together, unless we're talking about the economic system we live under and also consumerism. All of the things that I care about fall under that umbrella because of the environmental impact of them. And sometimes that's related in other ways to the period of time in our culture, in society, in our economic system, and consumerism as a whole. So that is the story today, that I want to talk about some ways that those things all coming together and where we're at in this moment in time, and how things that I care about are being impacted by them. And on a very personal level, on like my individual life level, the way that I see this reflecting a lot, and I've brought up in my videos over time, is that my favorite things always get discontinued. If I love something, eventually it will no longer exist. And if you've been following me for a long time, you may have seen that manifest in ways of like my favorite toothpaste, or what else gets mainly my favorite toothpaste, because I have some sensory issues, and so I'm very particular in that aspect. But that's just how all of these different things impact me on like my life level. But I want to talk about how I'm seeing it manifest at the grocery store and those sort of things. So without further ado, this is why everything kind of becomes the same, and our favorite things often disappear under the profit-driven world of consumerism. So the overarching idea is that at this moment in time, in our culture, in our society, with our economy, consumerism, that our choices are actually becoming less and less and less. And that looks like so many different things that I want to get into. But on a personal level for me, because I've been talking about how so many of my favorite things get discontinued, I made a list of the things that I, over the last couple years, have loved and they disappear. One being anything green apple flavored. I know this seems small, but hear me out, because I'm gonna make it make sense for you. And then I have a running list here. I'm gonna read it for you. Anything green apple flavored. My favorite pizza from Schlotzsky's. Sugar cookies at Einstein's. I remember when that happened. The toothpaste that I love that has been discontinued time and time and time again. The Sonic banana split, and this only sticks out. Yeah, the whole brand. They were really on the up and up. Share a banana split. We would walk to Sonic and share a banana split. The spinach wrap at Subway. Acai bowl at my favorite vegan place in town. Swimsuits at Girlfriend Collective. And the pretzels at Target. Yeah, they're long gone. The reason that these things no longer exist is, for my theory, is for a very specific reason of making sure that you maximize profits and therefore pick out the things that are most successful and highest profit earners within a business and get rid of everything else. And they actually have a word for someone like me, who is a consumer who tends to like more unique things, more fringe things, things that are not like the highest profit driven items or services, etc. And it's called the harbinger of failure. I don't want to say that wrong. Google, could you help us out?
Sure, it is a harbinger of failure.
When people are looking to like become a Fortune 500 company or make their company go public and sell, they look out for people like me, and I am not their target customer. The term harbinger of failure was first coined by marketing researchers to describe consumers whose purchases behavior unintentionally predicts which products will fail in the market. Studies published in outlets like the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, and CNBC have highlighted how companies can actually track this specific group of consumers, because they tend to gravitate towards niche, unconventional products that often don't resonate with the broader consumer base. Essentially, if a harbinger likes a product, it's statistically more likely to be discontinued in the future. I bring this up and I illustrate it this way because what's happening to me on a small individual scale is what happens on like a large worldwide scale when we consider the way our economy works. Our economy is set up to incentivize maximizing the gains and minimizing the losses, and the way to do that is to slowly strip away the niche products, the high quality products, anything that doesn't drive profits forward. And that's the reason that I think we are starting to see all of the other things that are happening on a more macro level, where all furniture has started to look the same, where really loved and sought after products that are unique are starting to disappear, and where this illusion of choice, we start to realize we actually don't have choice at all, because the choices that we're making to choose brands because of their ethics or their values or their supply chains or whatever it is, their ingredients, you slowly start to realize that they're actually all owned by the same companies. The reason that those are happening are the same reasons why the things that I love are getting discontinued, because they're not as profitable. And if you also experience this and you are also a harbinger of failure, like apparently I am.
I'm weird. I'm a weirdo. I don't fit in, and I don't want to fit in.
It really is shaping my understanding of the way that we can only exist and have access to what the economy and the market that we live under allows us to. And there was a lot of discussion about this when the zero waste movement was really popping off, that we were kind of blaming individuals and consumers for their consumer choices, when in reality we can only make the choices that are available to us. Like we can't always get everything plastic free or locally made, because it simply doesn't exist under the market that we exist under, and we can't exist in a different way than what is available to us. And I think that kind of explains a lot of why the zero waste movement is more of a fringe harbinger of failure, for lack of a better word, that those product spaces are for very niche markets, at least as they exist today. And as is the same thing for higher quality goods that maybe cost a little more, those are not the norm. They're not the things that most consumers are buying. And so they get pushed out and pushed out. And before we know it, it's super easy to find a $75 IKEA dresser, and it's really hard to find a more higher quality priced item that isn't vintage, right? I saw a video, I think the person's name is Mina Lee. It's right here. Go watch this video if you haven't already. I'll try to remember to link it below. But she explores why all furniture kind of looks the same. From that lens that I think she examines in that video is that there's kind of these different furniture sellers by their furniture from, and then depending on the way that they market things and the way that they go about business, they can charge different prices for the exact same item. But I think this just illustrates even more that that illusion of choice is really, we don't have a lot of it, because one seller sold all these different things, and it makes the choices less and less. Even though there are more people selling those things than ever, it's still all the same stuff. And through all of that, we lose quality, and we lose sustainability, and we lose being able to find anything unique. I feel like finding uniquely made things these days are so rare, and you have to seek them out so much, not just in furniture, but in home decor overall. And that is incentivized by always trying to maximize profits, keeping the graphs in the green. It is profit-driven decision-making, and it makes our choices less and less and less over time. There's another part of it when we talk about furniture specifically that can be termed something called planned obsolescence, which, if you know me, you know I am very passionate about. Even the decision to opt into planned obsolescence, which is the idea that you sell something that is lower quality so that someone buys it because it is cheaper, and in that way often more accessible, but only to a point, because once that thing wears out, they have to come back and buy it again. And that cycle is called planned obsolescence, to plan to sell you something lower quality so that you come back and have to purchase it again and again. And that entire ideology, the whole reason that exists, is still the profit-driven decision-making. Our parents and grandparents didn't buy multiple dressers. I have to buy a new one every time they move because the old one fell apart or no longer closes right, or something is just really wrong with it. Before planned obsolescence took over the forefront, people were responsible, or companies who made furniture were responsible for repairs. They had lifetime warranties. They were responsible for the things that they made. When it comes to things like kitchen gadgets, they were responsible for maintaining them. They had whole parts of their business dedicated to making sure sure that the thing they sold you would last long, because at the time that was the norm. But over time, we have shifted away from that, and consumers do not expect to buy something like that anymore. When they buy something, we almost know, at least when it comes to most big box stores, especially if we're talking about furniture, you are not buying nearly anything with the expectation that you would be able to keep it forever. And that system lends itself to having a really, really unsustainable long-term goal of being able to continuously extract resources and make new things all the time while throwing the old ones in a hole in the ground and hoping that, I don't know, someday we won't run out of space to bury those things in a hole in the ground. All the while limiting the amount of options we have, taking away all of the uniqueness, and continuing this really unsustainable cycle. That's kind of how I see it working for my small scale on and losing some of my favorite things. But we also saw this really interesting thing recently happen with Whole Foods and their chantilly cake. Shall we explore how the exact same principles were applied to this cake and how it's a really good example of how profit-driven decision making, and that being the only thing guiding decision making within business, is not gonna work out. It's not sustainable long term. So originally, Whole Foods chantilly cake was made with whole fruits. Like, there are pieces of berries in this cake, and it was very high quality, very unique. You could get like just a personal size of it, and people loved it. It has like a cult following, I learned through this whole experience. But this cake, in order to reduce costs and streamline production, they took out the fresh berries and they were going to replace it with this like gelatin jelly kind of thing in the cake.
They hit the Pentagon. Whole Foods chantilly cake is a victim of shrinkflation.
It's now just a little English tea cake. It tastes like shit.
It tastes like raspberry jam flavored cleaning product.
Again, to me, it illustrated this like pattern I keep seeing throughout everything. It's happening everywhere. Once you recognize the pattern, you can't unsee it. But this illustrated so perfectly how a business like Amazon, who undoubtedly is good at maximizing gains and minimizing losses, would find something as small and niche and just not the most profit-driven item in their store and try to make it to where it could be. Try to make it to where the amount of money that they make when they sell those pieces of cake is more than where it is now. And specifically for Whole Foods and Amazon, the reason that they're doing that is because, like I said, the way our economic system is set up is that we have to be able to exponentially grow our bottom line. In other words, profits have to continue to grow every single year, regardless of the fact that we live on a finite planet, and exponential growth is literally impossible in that case, and also at the detriment of like our entire existence as a human race on planet Earth. When we do that, it's like literally impossible, but I digress. And I feel like we've been taught over my lifetime that consumerism is the key to being happy, to having everything you want. And I think it's been ingrained in us like over time that the structure that we live under is what's best for us, is what gives us choice, supply and demand, yada, yada, yada. But I think more and more we're seeing that actually we're just really on the race to the bottom, the race to lesser quality products, lesser options for everyone. And I think the Whole Foods chantilly cake was just, at least the way it kind of popped off on TikTok, was silly. On a broader scale, this is a really great illustration of what is happening in our society in this current period of time. And not only does it make it really sad for those of us who like more niche products, who like to have more options than less, it's really antithetical to the way that we've been told all of our lives, like all of these systems that we live under are supposed to help us. So I'm experiencing it on a personal level of all my things being discontinued. I am pattern recognizing that certain things are happening. I see Mina's video. I see what's happening with the Whole Foods chantilly cake, and then Pepsi by Siete. And I knew I needed to make this video.
They hit the Pentagon.
So if you're a plant-based person, or you care about health in any way, or you are from Austin, or you care about sustainability, chances are you've heard of this brand called Siete. It is a brand that was started here in Austin to minimize ingredients in food for people who have allergies, gluten intolerances, things like that. And I really believed in this brand because I had been buying their stuff since they were really, really small, and then started seeing them in the grocery store, and then started seeing them change up some things and add a lot more products to their line. line. And I always can see the trajectory that these brands are on when they're on it, to be honest. And so I've seen a lot of these businesses follow this trajectory where they become really popular because they are super niche, because people who believe in better food or better for the environment or better for people really grows them, because those people, it's me, we have certain values. We are the fringe of the economy, where if brands can meet our standards that we care about, we will support them wholeheartedly. I always struggle with saying this, although it is very true. I am a brand loyalist. If I find something of a brand that aligns with my beliefs, my morals, my character, all those sort of things, if I feel comfortable supporting them, I will stay with them forever. I've been using the same shampoo for like 10 years or something. Same thing with my toilet paper, same thing with my phone case, same thing with things that I have to buy on like a semi-normal basis. I will stick with it. I am that consumer that grows brands like Siete, and I can always see when they get on the trajectory of being bought out.
If you've ever been dealt a chronic illness card in your life, you know how important it is to eat good, clean food and drink clean water. And unfortunately, we can't trust our food for it to be clean, less chemicals, less preservatives when we sell out to a big corporation, one like being Pepsi.
And the reason these big buyouts bother me are not because I don't want Siete to be like more accessible. I definitely would love to see more brands like that be more accessible to the broader public. But the problem is that's not how these brands grew. That's not their purpose. Siete's purpose is never to be sold to the same consumer that buys Pepsi, which is a mass market, so much bigger than what Siete is. Siete is meant to be for people who are trying to make better choices for them, for the planet, and for the people within the supply chain. And when you take those values that built these brands and you sell them to this massive business, the transparency goes drastically down on how they're handling all of those operations, and they start cutting costs to maximize the profits. And all of a sudden, this brand that we've all rallied around for years because we love what they stand for no longer stands for the same things. It incentivizes that, because in order for Pepsi's bottom line to keep going up and keep staying green, if they acquire these smaller businesses of sub niches of the market that are growing, they don't have to change what they're doing in their operations to be more sustainable or to cater to those audiences, because we're the fringe. We're just the fringe consumers, but they get to benefit from those businesses growing all at the same time. And it's also really frustrating, like on a whole other note, and I know I've been saying I need to make this video for a while, but the ESG scores of these businesses, their ESG score improves when they obtain these smaller businesses doing better for their supply chains without ever having to improve the supply chain of their own business, which basically just means that they get better and better ESG scores for doing really nothing. And I don't fault Siete for doing the buyout. I think our structure that we live under incentivizes that, because that's just kind of the model. You grow a brand until it gets big enough and someone wants to buy it from you, and that's kind of your exit strategy a lot of the times because of how our economic system is structured, and it takes a lot to turn down something like that. They become brands that I don't trust, I don't support to the same level that I did, because they're not the same brand anymore. I can't trust them the way I used to. The transparency falls, and the things that they're doing behind the scenes to make those profits higher and lessen the cost, those things usually come at a cost to people or to the environment. And the most frustrating part of all of this, the overarching theme of this video, is that our choices become less and less. If I don't want to support a giant multinational conglomerate company that has done like human rights violations, suddenly I don't have as many choices when I walk into the chip aisle, because they're all owned by like 4 different brands. With all of that in mind, something I would encourage you to do, and something that I will be doing in 2025 and talking a lot more about on this channel, so if you're not already subscribed, you probably should, is just divesting from the big conglomerate economy in general. That has been like a big focus for me for the last couple years, is if I'm going to be spending my money, I want to spend it on brands that are not owned by giant conglomerates that already have the mass appeal, the mass market. They don't need my help. But there are brands out there that do, and they have a lot more transparency when it comes to taking care care of the people who actually make the things that they're selling and caring for the environment along the way. I think I'm going to be doing like essentially a no buy because I have a lot of problems with the way that our economy is going in the United States and globally. It will be an extreme low buy year, no buy year, high budgeting year for me. 2025 will be for those reasons, but also for the reasons that I outlined in this video. Even at the end of the day, when we're talking about like trying to do the most sustainable thing or the most ethical thing when we're making purchasing decisions, at the end of the day, like if something I'm buying comes in plastic, but it was produced in a way that is transparent, that is not exploitative to people and our planet and our resources, that is such a bigger deal to me than if something is coming in packaging that's going to end up as waste. Because don't get me started on the fact that like none of our recycling systems are working, and unless you have a refill store near you, which is just an immense privilege, like it doesn't really matter the packaging that you're using. I think at the end of the day, small businesses are more transparent. They do things in a way that is meaningful. And once you get to those conglomerate levels, you lose choice, you lose transparency, and it's just something that I've been trying to move away from in every aspect that I can, and I will continue to do that through the new year, and I encourage you to do it too. But I'm so looking forward to what you think about this in the comments, and so looking forward to how you take this information and like what you'll do with it afterwards, because sometimes it's okay to just sit down and talk about things that you care about and things that you're frustrated with and not really have all the answers, because I'm not always the solver, but I am good at pattern recognition, and I like to believe, I try to be good at explaining the problem. In light of that being the thing, I think this is also why I like this catchphrase, do your best and advocate for the rest, because doing our best looks like supporting small businesses, and advocacy happens on every level. It happens on the way we vote with our dollars. It happens with the way we vote when we cast our ballots. It happens with how we volunteer and support our community. It happens with how we educate ourselves. It happens with how we educate our communities. It happens in so many different ways. And so you can do your best with the things that we just talked about, make better choices, but you can also advocate that big mergers like this, multi-billion-dollar mergers, are not what happen long term. You can advocate that, those sort of things happen, and you can vote in those ways in your local elections and in national elections. So I'll leave you off with that. And remember, until next time, do your best and advocate for the rest. Bye, guys.